I like salad. Do you like salad?
Hi, I'm Hostion Ho. I'm living in Vancouver, BC, Canada, unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I am an immigrant to Canada from China.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea coming to you from Victoria, but more importantly known as unceded Akwesasne territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and I am an immigrant from the United States of America. And you're listening to
Canadian salad.
Canadian salad. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. This is the first time we are recording this newly founded and wonderful topic called Canadian salad. I'm really excited to be here today. How about you, Hoshin?
Same, very excited. And also thank you for Andrea, bringing up this brilliant idea and having me on so we can discuss all things Canada and all things culture, which is what bonds us in the first place.
It sounds like we should have a radio station too. That would be amazing.
Our voice sounds great.
It does. It does.
Andrea, why do you want to do this podcast?
That's a very good question. Growing up, I always read about other countries and I always loved learning about other countries. I lived and didn't travel much outside of the United States, where I was originally from. And this love of culture really stuck with me. And it wasn't until I had an experience living in another country that I realized there is and can be a lot of misunderstanding between cultures. So when coming to Canada, I really wanted to learn more. How do we dispel these stereotypes and how do we connect more with each other based on our shared humanity, our shared love of family and community? And how do we remove those social negative stereotypes of newcomers? And so that was the birth of this podcast, to really say, hey, can we have a platform where we normalize and talk about culture and talk about differences in a safe space? And that's why I reached out to you, Hoshin, because we met at Royal Roads University here in Victoria.
We both had a master. You're welcome.
That's right. You're welcome, Canada. So smart. And so it was our friendship, really. I loved our friendship and I loved our experience because there were over 14 different countries represented just in our cohort, which was incredible, especially for a very, I would say, ignorant person as myself who didn't know much about the world. So having that collaborative shared work experience was absolutely incredible. And that gave me even more love of cultures and having those conversations.
I would agree. Yes, definitely doing the master was an amazing experience. Just having so much perspective, so many different ideas and background, and then when you work together, and then people bring different things on the table, and it's just very refreshing. Sometimes challenging, but I think that is also a great way to learn, especially when we're in a school environment. I would say it's a very safe environment to question even our own ideas and others. It's a really great way to learn about ourselves and others and in general the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to be that challenging piece too, right? To look at and hear about another person's perspective on the world or on religion or faith or politics or your country of origin and look back and say, oh, I never thought that was a possible perspective. What do I do with this? And how do I engage with this instead of just shutting down and walking away from it?
Yes, I agree. Definitely agree.
Hoshin, I'm curious. I reached out to you to start this podcast. What made you say yes?
Oh, wow. First is you. I can never say no to you.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, look at that face. You are amazing. I mean, your name starts with an A. That's what we share.
True.
Many reasons, but first, yes, because of you and I developed our friendship. I think we are in many ways very similar for our love and passion towards culture, towards tolerance and love and kindness. That's one thing. And also myself as an immigrant from China, I very fortunately also live in many places in Australia, in the States, and here. This journey makes me also very curious of the ways that how human interact and even discriminate. It's not always in a good light, obviously. That we just how to understand how is culture play a part of our interaction. I also used to be a translator, and which translating language sometimes is not always efficient if you don't understand what is behind those words. And it motivates me to learn more. If I have opportunity to dive in even more and share my experience, why not? That's why I love doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. I think there is, in many ways, there's an experience that not a lot of people really understand when you come to a new place and you make a new home and
Hmm.
you are maybe learning a new language for the first time, a new
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
lots of unspoken expectations
And
and
stereotypes
and
as especially,
stereotypes. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, as me as Asian man come to like a
Mm,
predominantly white country, I still face a lot of stereotypes. When I was living in Asia, I don't know what racism is. I am the predominant
right.
race, kind of
Right.
very monoculture in many ways. What is
Mm,
racism? I don't know her.
right.
People, especially when I first come, people think I must be good at math. It's like good at math. I didn't know this is a stereotype. Everyone good at math in China.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
that
Right.
is,
And opposite the United States, in some ways, we're known for a lot of the racism that has perpetuated over the years. And yes, as a white woman, I wanted to be part of the group that was having these conversations and trying to help my friends and my community really try to understand because we are all one global family. And I want to normalize the experience. I want to normalize politics, whether it's culture or language. The English language is not perfect by any means. And unfortunately, it does have a certain tone and it has language and terms that don't necessarily elevate or dignify people who are not born from Europe. And how do we do that? How do we talk about that? So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I have another question.
Oh, yes.
Why Canadian salad? Why we call
Oh,
this Canadian
yes.
salad?
Yes, thank you. Growing up in the United States, there was this concept or idea that America is a melting pot. You
Uh-huh.
come to America,
Like
you
a stew.
melt like
Yeah.
or a really good Gouda or cheese, like a melted
A
cheese to
cheese
dip
fondue.
a cheese fondue.
Whole
Exactly.
cheese melt together.
That's what America is, just a big
Now I'm
giant
hungry.
fondue. I know. But
Okay, go
yeah,
on. Sorry.
but no, it's true. It's this idea that when you come, you are melting into this overall vision and dream and purpose that is the American experiment or the American experience, right? It is
Hmm.
this everyone is the same. So, when we talk about Canada being a salad,
Hmm.
when I first came here, I remember hearing that, "Oh, well, Canada's not a melting pot. We're a
Hmm.
salad." And I thought, "Well, can you explain that? Like, what's the difference?"
Also, Canadians are obsessed with, being different from the States.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that they love. I mean,
Yeah, one of the things.
when it's your
Rather than,
neighbor, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
other than
kind of like,
salad.
in some ways, this idea that we're a salad. We're all different and we are coming
Yeah.
together, but we're not melting ourselves into the giant
Yeah.
fondue called America. We're
Hmm.
actually still maintaining our identity.
Yeah. If you're a tomato, you are a tomato.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
won't become something else.
No one's if
Or
you're a
maybe,
tomato.
yeah, maybe you want to be a lettuce, be free.
What part are you, would you say, of a
I want to
salad?
be a tomato. I love a
You love
tomato. Every time I
tomatoes?
find a
Yeah.
salad tomato, I always pick the tomato out because I love tomatoes.
Do you go through and, like, eat them all first and then eat the rest of your salad?
Yes.
Do you?
I usually do. Ooh, tomato, yay.
That's amazing. I'll
What about
say,
you?
I think I would be a pea.
A pea. It's
A pea.
tiny.
So tiny, yes, but also punchy and full of flavor. I don't know.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
it adds a nice crunch, like, I'll provide a nice
Texture.
crunch in your life, but I'm not
Mm,
gonna be overpowering, and I'm not gonna dominate who you are or
mm,
your flavors, but I will try to accentuate the rest of them, so
yeah.
it's really nice
What
to know you're a tomato.
Another thing I love that analogy of that Canada is like a salad is also that we maintain who we are in a salad. Well, you're lettuce, your tomato, tomato. But also like there's a dressing. There's in many ways there's a dressing on a salad. And I'd like to believe that yes, we love to preserve who we are, our differences, and you should be who you are, but then there should be a common thread that unites all
Mm,
of us. There should be a
mm,
dressing, a similar flavor, this common value. Because without common value, we cannot also sit on a table and then talk on certain things. We have to have common goals and, respect. And I
yeah.
like that also that layer of meaning of
Yeah,
salad.
that's a
Yeah.
good analogy. I kind of want to break out into "Oh Canada."
Oh, can oh
Um,
my God. Are we patriots?
no. Well, no, I don't know. Anyway, that's another podcast.
That's
What if-
another. Okay.
but yeah, no, I like that idea that there's got to be something that brings us together that we can work together towards, right? If you come together and say, look, we've got tomatoes here, we've got peas here. How do we work together and integrate together so that we are working towards that common focus and that common goal?
Exactly. It's
yeah.
how to make a salad delicious because at the end of the day, you have to eat that salad. It
That's
has to be
right.
good.
But so one question, do you like fruit on your salad?
I quite like fruit, just not
You-
raisins.
Okay, on your salad.
Yeah.
See, my
I like
husband
a-
loves, yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
loves
go on.
fruit on his salad. And I just think
Yeah.
fruit with vegetables, guys,
You know,
maybe I'm not
tomato
that
is
integrated.
tomato is a fruit, right? By definition of what
It's
fruit
true.
means. The inclusion. Love
I
that.
know. Again, this is a journey. This is my process as a pea in a grand old Canadian salad. The topic that we want to talk about today really covers immigration, refugees, Citizenship Canada opened a lot more pathways for newcomers to come to Canada. And
Mhm.
this is largely in part due to the pandemic because
Mhm.
immigration for at least a good year and a half was cut off, at least the traditional immigration streams.
Yeah.
And what that did was really impact the economic ability and capability to sustain systems, supply, production, that sort of a thing.
Mhm.
So, in many ways, Canada's looking at how do we make this easier for immigrants to legally become to this country and contribute to the overall economy. The stream recently was the trades, specifically looking at carpentry, plumbing, contracting, heating, refrigeration, these particular trades that are for the construction industry.
Yeah.
And so everyone knows that the ministry did conduct quite a few surveys and wanted to know what was the need on the ground as far as different industries goes, whether that be
Mhm.
hospitality, whether that be health, whether that be construction. And that was one of the predominant themes was that we have huge gaps in construction because a lot of people also during the pandemic retired early.
Yeah.
So everyone who has that experience and that tenure is gone. But there's not enough people who are apprentices, who are trained, who are skilled to fill
replace
those
them.
roles.
Yeah.
To replace them. So that is one reason why they've said, okay, how do we make this pathway easier? Because let's face it, construction's construction. If you're hitting a nail in Australia versus hitting a nail in Uganda, it's the same, right? It's,
True,
you've
that is
got a
true.
hammer, you've got
Yeah.
a nail. And I know that construction is much more than just hitting nails,
Yeah.
but there is transferable skills and experiences in that
Yeah.
particular industry.
Countries has always used immigration policies to direct economy in some sense, or like
Mhm.
to fulfill the voids in labor force. This is a clear sign that the Canadian government also realized that these roles in society is definitely dramatically lacking. That's why they open these portals and express entries to want to attract more immigrants that all have the skills to come in. How about economy to grow? Canada has
Right.
always been relying on immigrants for economic prosperity. And that is just another sign signaling that we need these skilled workers to come in to help us in some sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Immigration is always good. As I mentioned, that Canada always rely on immigrants for economy growth, which just many data to suggest. Just in a little Google, you will realize that Canada is really relying on that. And second, I think having this expensive immigration entry specific for targeting certain skilled worker, construction is definitely helping also our housing crisis as well, which we probably should elaborate a little bit more later.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Also give you the scale of how much immigration has helped us for the population growth is Statistic Canada have data set migration has accounted for more than 3/4 of the total population growth since 2016 in reaching an 85.7% in 2019. And of course, it dropped a little bit during pandemic, but then,
Sure.
yeah, that's why. Yeah,
That's
it's
incredible.
crazy.
I didn't
Yeah.
know it was that high.
Yeah. The immigrants are taking control of Canada.
We still love
helping, just
you.
helping.
That's why we're
I
here.
mean, yeah,
Well,
we're
and
helping.
exactly, because there are some beautiful things that Canada does do that is attractive to the outside world. I would say another positive thing, it was back in 2021, there was a professor at Ryerson University. She completed this huge comprehensive study looking at immigration and its relation to crime rates over the
Mm-hmm.
past 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the conclusion was that more immigration equals less crime, that immigrant communities actually bring in a sense of stability. They know that they want to be law abiding as much as they can because they maybe don't want to go back to their country of origin. So they work really
Mm-hmm.
hard to follow laws, to integrate, and to start their own businesses, right? It's immensely positive to have immigrants. There was another statistic that came out, and we can link this all in our podcast information as well. Happy to do so. But immigrants actually contribute more to benefits for Canadians than they receive.
Yeah.
Immigrants, because there is in some ways a lack of knowledge about what an immigrant can benefit from. Maybe it might be like provincial benefits, federal benefits, those kinds of things. The work and ethic of immigrants contributes and creates more benefits for everyone living in Canada. I read that and I thought that's really, really positive.
Especially to echo your point of welfare, many
Mhm.
immigrants who come here, especially if they're refugee status, they still have to work, they still have to pay taxes, and then they
Mhm.
still contributing to the economy in ways they contribute so much, but they can't necessarily receive all these welfare that a lot of
Right.
us are entitled to. So that's
Right.
another thing I want to point out.
Yeah. And I remember working with many refugees that came to Canada, at least on Vancouver Island, that said, we don't want to be on welfare. There is a sense of dignity that we
I
have a
think
job.
so.
We want to provide for ourselves. We want to be masters of our own fate and be supporting ourselves. We don't
Yeah.
want to lean on the government for that. And
It's
so
definitely
that
cultural. Yeah. The
it
cultural
is.
thing
It
as
is.
well.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a term also that came out of the United States. Rosemary Campbell Stevens, she's an academic scholar, but also a social activist. In 2003, she realized that English language, and we alluded to this earlier, does not always necessarily portray people in the right light, right?
Okay.
And you can call it decolonization of our language. There's lots of terms for it, but she examined this term ethnic minority and said, what does that term actually do for people who are coming to a colonized country who don't look Eurocentric white? Her research, though, and exploring language and identity and social identity theories and all of these beautiful frameworks that come with language and social studies, was this term called global majority. And the global majority, it's a term that she defines. And again, we can link this into the episode, but it refers to people who are Black, Asian, brown, dual heritage, indigenous to the global South, and or have been racialized as, quote, ethnic minorities. The idea is that globally, these groups of people currently represent approximately 80% of the world's population. So when we're talking about integration of newcomers to Canada, we're talking about integrating a very large majority of the world's population into Canada. If we're looking at what that statistic, that 85.9% makes up immigrant populations,
Yeah.
that's a majority.
It is a majority.
It is a majority. And in some ways, when we see people who don't reflect a white outward appearance, we think, well, they're an ethnic minority. And that minority has a distinction or a message that you're less than. You're not necessarily equal to us. You're on the outside. You are the smaller amount of people and perspectives, and
you need help.
And you need help. And you don't have anything to offer us.
Yes.
As far as salad goes, you might be a crouton and we can choose you off.
Or cheese, lactose intolerant.
Cheese. Some people are lactose intolerant. So yeah, I think is a term gaining traction in academia in the States and slowly here in some spheres in Canada. Hostion, you being a part of the global majority.
Yeah.
What does that term do for you versus ethnic minority?
I think I first want to acknowledge that the definition of we are the majority, Black, Asians, like we are,
Hmm.
brown, all of us together definitely take over the majority of the population of the earth. So yes, we are the majority. And I think versus to use the word minority, I think it gives us a sense of power, empowerment that we are
Mm,
the majority, which is true, we are. And
yeah.
then I can see in these global dialogues of talking about equality, I think that is very powering to use the word majority. It gives you power. You can do this. We are the majority already. We have a sense of authority, which is great because it
Hmm.
has always not been the case compared to using the word minority. But on the other hand, I also want to point out that using the word majority can maybe diminish the struggle that all of us that had been going through still going through in some sense because yes, it gives us power. It gives us the idea that we are okay. But the reality is many of us still facing discrimination, facing opportunities not as much and as equal as other people. They definitely still need the help. So I think that the word global majority in the sense of equalizing or elevating racial minorities up can maybe also give a false sense of power.
Mm,
So I would be cautious about what context this word should be used.
yeah, that's fair. When I read the term, I thought, wow, it was revolutionary because growing up, the term ethnic or racial
Hmm.
minority or people of visible minorities was used for a long time and still used in, in some research circles and frameworks. But like you said, there are two sides to every coin. And it's
Yeah,
really good to understand what are the implications of our words because words have meaning and words have
yeah,
power. And like you said, as much as we come to a new country, there isn't always that representation of
yeah,
ourselves in positions of leadership, in
yeah.
positions of authority, people who are
Hmm.
making decisions for
Hmm.
global majority who are coming to Canada,
Yes.
right? We'll include that link. It's a term I encourage anyone to read and expand on. I think it's a really good research. I think it would be amiss to just focus on positive aspects of immigration and not address some of the worries and concerns that we've
Yeah.
heard from people in the Canadian context about immigration and what that does to the country.
Yeah.
Because let's
I
talk about it, right? Let's normalize it.
think the first one tied to immigration, especially in current days, I think housing market, the
Mm,
housing
yeah,
price going up, like crazy. Definitely many people blame immigrants, which I think that is one of the worry many people have. Any price in general in a capitalist society, which we are in, there's
right,
no denying of that, is
right,
always the equation of demand and supply. And
right.
yes, Canada, I believe they want to welcome 500,000 immigrants to Canada like this year or next year, I believe
Yeah, yeah,
having 500,000 people coming in Canada, and I will believe majority of these people are going to come to major cities, which going to
sure.
even put more pressure on that demand. And then the supply, of course, we cannot build 500,000 condo
Hmm.
like just like that.
Right.
So definitely it put a lot of stress into the supply chain, which definitely ultimately drive up prices.
Mm,
So that blame, I would say, so-called blame, I would say, or
right.
reasoning, had definitely some sort of foundation there. But I also want to shift that
Mm,
kind of idea to another perspective of the government policies.
hmm.
The government, they're not stupid. Of course, they will understand that this welcoming this many people definitely put stress on the market in terms of housing market. But then
Right,
they have no concrete specific plan to make sure the supply can catch up. They just keep opening
right.
welcoming more and more, which we need it. Canada needs it.
Hmm.
We understand that we already established previously that we need these people here to help us to
Right.
grow. But then Canada, the government should have more policy in place to make sure that the supply catch up. There's so much
Yeah.
the government can do to just not allow. There's so many countries like Australia, for example, they have many type policies not seeing housing as an investment. And I
Mm,
don't know why we don't do more of that
yeah.
to just blame immigrant. It's just not right.
No, no.
Yeah,
It's like you said, we can see where people can reach that conclusion, but that is a part of the greater whole. The
exactly.
the greater whole is, okay, IRCC, why don't you talk to the Ministry of Economic Development? Have a meeting, be buddies. Talk about how your immigration levels are going to impact overall economic stability. right? Do we have
Mm-hmm.
infrastructures in place? So
Mm.
even the neighborhood that I live in, it's growing so fast that the school system can't keep up. Government supported systems are not being backed up. They're not being given that same rate of growth and support as immigration. So I agree that there definitely needs to be more solutions around housing. If anything, we're bringing in a lot of people with trade skills. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
building those houses,
Yeah,
right? So
they are.
yeah, right. And most of us rent anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because, well, we can't afford a house. There were already pre-existing issues with the housing market and system that needed to be addressed before immigration became as big as it is, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say another worry that I hear a lot is that immigrants are taking jobs away.
Wow. Wow.
Which,
More than more than
well,
half the labor market are immigrants. So in some sense, yes.
so, okay, let's talk about it. An immigrant comes here and takes away my job. So the places that I see most newcomers is another word for immigrant, by the way, people. Most jobs that I see newcomers taking are jobs within fast food, health
Mm-hmm.
occupations, primarily within the retired sector, health aides. Because, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if I were to ask someone, my neighbor who was born and raised in Canada, hey, McDonald's is hiring. I'm not going to work there. Are you kidding me? Hey,
Yeah.
there's a developer. They're needing more guys on the team. I know you have construction background. Maybe, there's no
Mm.
money in construction. I'm not going to work there. Right. The jobs that immigrants are filling, native born Canadians are saying, yeah, that's my dream job. That's the job that I will do. Right. It's very much like I'm entitled to have a 6-figure job. That's what I want.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into maybe technology or software development, or I'm going to be in banking or whatever. Like we have these bigger, we're not looking at these particular positions. Immigrants do not deserve the low end jobs. They don't
Yeah.
deserve those. If you are an immigrant to Canada, do not settle. That should not be your landing, your only option. What you
Yeah.
want is what you want, and go for it. If you want
Yeah.
to own a bank someday, go for that. If you want to be an actor, you go for that. If you want to work in government, do it. But to say that immigrants are taking jobs away from Canadians, if anything, without immigrants, we wouldn't have jobs for Canadians, right?
Exactly. Opening portals for people in carpentry and plumbing to fill in our job market, labor market. It also says some of that. Like that means there's not enough of these people in
Right.
Canada. This means there's jobs, there's like openings, this void, this economy that many Canadians can go to do it, but they are not doing it.
Right.
So now the
Exactly.
government's like, oh, no one's doing it. I have to outsource this opportunity, this job opportunity, because no one here is doing it.
Mhm.
So I definitely agree that this is such a misconception, and it's just
Mhm.
people want to find someone to blame for their unsatisfactory career path.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes also like a media thing too.
Sure.
Movies or in media, in many ways, it portray white people always have like a big fancy job and like a fancy life, and the
Mhm.
the POC people are
The
the
driver,
assistants. Yeah, the
the
driver.
elevator bellhop. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
So
Okay.
even white people seeing a POC having a higher end job, oh, that person, that POC working in a high end job took my position. That should be mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm entitled to that job, even though
Yeah.
I have a high school degree and they have a PhD.
And that's true. We have so many topics to explore, but it's very true. There should be equal opportunities for everyone. And that's what
Yeah.
makes immigration so positive is in many ways we bring a set of ideas and experiences that can help an organization grow and thrive and try new things that maybe just haven't, right? If a business wants to expand to a global market, let's say they want to reach people in China, they want to expand to that market, but they have no one in their company from China.
Yeah.
Guys, right? We immigrants accentuate and enhance workplaces,
Yeah.
making their reach far more reaching. And in many
Yeah.
ways, that's what's so wonderful about seeing people who do come here.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely
Yeah.
gives us so much more opportunities and space and rooms for growth, prosperity, for outreach. Immigrants brings so much joy to our society.
Mhm.
Imagine if all the things that we celebrate nowadays, food that we love to eat. If there's no immigrant, none of this exists for us. We're just gonna eat potato salad every day.
But yeah, and that's just boring and poutine. Right? Like fireworks. Thank you, China. Like that,
Yeah.
right? Like
We invented, China
no one
invented
was doing fireworks in Canada. I mean, there were other things that went boom, but they were not fireworks. So
They went boom.
if people do have hesitations, and if you are an immigrant or if you support immigration, just to encourage everyone out there, have these conversations. Be
Yeah.
willing to talk about these difficult topics that might create knee-jerk reactions in other people, that might get someone heated and beet red, and be curious about their position. What brought you here? Why do you think immigrants are to blame for housing? And try to understand where that person's coming from, because I feel like the more that we're curious with one another, the more we can have conversations and we can de-escalate that tensity and come back and be rooted in our shared humanity. So
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, also you have to respect one another, right? I always tell everyone, you don't have to like me. You don't even have to understand my position. You don't have to even like validate my immigration to Canada, but you have to respect me because I'm already here. You have to respect me as a
Right.
human and living and breathing on this earth. You know,
Yeah.
I think that it should be like the bare minimum of having these
Mhm.
conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're about to wrap up, but we're going to wrap up with a brief quiz because both Hoshin and I are, well, newly landed. I wouldn't say we're newly landed. I've been
Not
here
new.
8 years.
I'm
here
here.
for-
We've been here to say
8 years.
time.
Okay, 8 same
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So we're 8 years in, but at the same time, there's a lot of things about this country
Canada.
that we now live in Canada that maybe we
Yeah.
don't know about. So Hoshin and I are going to have a Canada quiz. The idea is that we should learn more about our country, and maybe there's facts that you all don't know out there. So this is a dual purpose education for us all. So Hoshin, do
Yes.
you want to go first?
Okay. You know the Cross Canada like railway? I believe it's CPR.
Yes, I've wanted to take a
Cross the
train.
Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah, railway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I also want to
Mhm.
do that then. That Cross Canada Railway is very important in Canadian history and bonding,
Mhm.
connecting all these provinces together. So do you know which cultural community, in some sense, has the biggest contribution?
Building it?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Is there a timer? Am I on a timer?
You want to do 50-50? Ask our
Let me just phone a friend.
yeah, phone a friend,
Bill
ask
across
the
the street.
audience.
Yeah. I would say, would it be, well, like mainland China? Would be the Chinese community?
Yes, the Chinese community. You're absolutely right. Ding, 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 ding. $1 million question. Yay.
Yay!
Yes. The CPR approximately employed about 15,000 Chinese workers
Wow.
to build that
Wow.
whole thing across Canada. And
That's
many
incredible.
of them consist mostly Chinese and some Europeans.
Mm.
The Chinese gets pay around $1, while the Europeans get $1.5 to $2 per day. And not to
Dang.
mention, they would just send ships to China to pick up, just like buying cargo and ship them here. Of course, with this kind of promise of a free land, like this
Sales pitch.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some sense, yeah. But then after they arrive, not long after, the Chinese Exclusion Act came to place, which is the opposite what they were promised, opposite what they were imagined would happen. But the Chinese Exclusion Act, that we can get into that another day, because it's also a very, in some sense, a disgraceful history of Canada. But we can get into that later. But just everyone to know that Chinese has played a very important role in uniting Canada as a country.
Absolutely. My thanks to you and
I know.
China. Yeah.
Canadian, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Okay.
You can
My
email your
ancestors.
thank you cards to
Oh, you can e-transfer me too.
gifts. Yeah, exactly. We
Gifts
do
are
accept
welcome.
credit, debit, and firstborn children. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So you are next, Hoshin. My
Yes.
question to you is, there is a monument in Toronto which celebrates victory over what country? Canada had a victory over another country. What country was that victory over?
United States.
Yes.
I just guessed. Actually, no, I think I
Yes.
read it. No, I read it actually in my citizenship test. It was
Okay.
this, yeah, somewhere, I think close to the Toronto area
I'm not exactly sure where in Toronto,
or
but there was
Montreal
a
area.
statue. The history really is that during the American Revolution, right?
Mhm.
You get people coming over from England who just want to revolt against the king, so they came to the States. Canada was a bit different. A lot of people were like, "Oh, free land," quote unquote, and they came to Canada, but they were still loyal to the crown. Well, in the
Mhm.
War of 1812, here comes American troops thinking, "Hey, the British are coming. Maybe we can, get all these other folks, to support us." And they were met with fierce opposition, and it was a big battle. But yes, basically, Canada's identity was forged in its opposition to its southern neighbor. The war did contribute greatly to Canada's emerging sense of self-identity
Good,
because of the
good.
victory over
Yeah.
the southern neighbor. So I
But
know.
just remember
So
what I
you
said.
don't have to thank America, Canada. You can, I guess, you can send
Thank
your
your soldiers. Yeah, thank your
distasteful
soldiers.
emails to. And I won't take any cash, but you can have some of mine. I guess it's the opposite. No one's thanking America. Thank China.
Wow. True. Thank China. True.
Thank
I think that's one part of Canadian identity too. That Canadians love just to make sure that they are not American.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has
to be
been
different.
interesting journey transitioning
Yeah,
here, but we'll get into that further down the road. But
yes,
this has been such a good conversation, and I am so thankful that we covered all these really important topics. I know we haven't gone as deep as we can go,
Mhm.
but hopefully this begins a conversation for all of you out there to have with
Yes,
family and friends and in your workplaces, and making Canada even better. Canada is good and great, and we want to make sure she continues doing those good things.
exactly. And remember always that immigration is the strength of this country.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Immigrants.
We get the job done. We all still see. Look at us, two immigrants making a podcast,
Oh,
contributing to the Canadian great culture.
yeah. And we are self-employed, so we didn't really take anyone's job away from making a podcast. Just
That
so
is
you know.
very true.
Yes.
Self-employed. You are
Yes.
welcome again, Canada.
So please join us for our next episode. Hoshin, we're going to be talking about more of you. And
What? Me?
yes, you. I know.
Me
Get ready.
more?
Prepare a song. And please stay tuned for that. But thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.
See you next episode.
Next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hostion and Andrea McCoy. Theme music is by Naver Avetyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Janklin production.